Welcome to Put a Word on It, a podcast presented by Men of Valor. In each episode, we're going to talk with a different man, but each one with a unique journey from brokenness to freedom. I'm your host, Rudy Kalis. I spent over 40 years as a TV sportscaster, then retired and joined the Men of Valor program as a volunteer, so join the conversation. Reconciling men to God, their families, and society. Welcome to another edition of Put a Word on It, brought to you by Interstate AC. And the young man getting into the chair for our conversation, I'm really looking forward to spending some time with Jeff Phipps, who has just finished his entire year here at Men of Valor, a graduate with a smile on his face. Here's Jeff. You just graduated.
Yes, sir.
Did you think you'd make it through?
Yeah, I thought I'd make it through. I had set my mind in prison that I had prayed to God for God to put me where He wanted me, and I would do my part. And that's kind of how I looked at it when I got here.
There's a lot of rules. I mean, things they really make you kind of toe the line. Some guys have trouble with that. Did you have any difficulties?
No, I didn't really have too many difficulties. I think before I had got here, I'd already submitted my life to God, and I was already living the Christian lifestyle. So for me, it wasn't that hard, because I was willing to do whatever I had to do for some certain things to take place in my life.
What are you doing now? What are you gonna do?
What I'm going to do is stay on this walk. But what I'm doing is, and what God's doing through me is build my relationship back with my daughters. And for a long time, I never thought that was possible. I never thought that I would ever have a relationship with them, especially my youngest, because from the time she was born in 2010 up until a year ago, I wasn't in her life. I didn't really have no contact, maybe talk to them on the phone. And I can just remember the first day getting out, and everything I had was like in the laundry bag, everything I had. And I can remember just trusting, like in the back of my mind, just saying, trust the process, just trust the process, and put your trust in God. And I got up here, and when I was able to have a phone, I was sending texts to my daughters every day, and I would tell them, I love y'all, I'm thinking about y'all. And for a while, they didn't text back, or they might not have called back. And I didn't use that as like feeling sorry for myself. Really what I felt sorry for is like how they felt, for not having their dad in their life. And that was just, I used them things for motivation, and I stayed in prayer about them.
Let's do this. That's so fascinating. Let's roll the clock back. You grew up in this area.
Yes, sir.
Laverne played basketball in high school. Were you a good kid?
Yeah, I was a good kid. Basketball was my escape. My dad actually raised me. My mom wasn't never really in my life. I have a brother and I have two sisters. My dad was like my hero. My dad, he was an alcoholic, but I remember he used to come to all my games. He was sick. He had got a medical discharge from the Marines at 23 because he had heart trouble, and he had a triple bypass surgery at the age of 23. So he had got a medical discharge.
How did that affect family life for him being an alcoholic?
There was good times and bad times. My dad, he raised us on Social Security checks. But when he would drink, he might get a little out of hand. And my escape was basketball, so I would stay out from the time I woke up until the time the sun went down.
All the time.
Yes, sir. All the time.
Get in any trouble because you wound up, life took a turn. How?
So my life took a turn, and so I experimented with drugs like throughout high school and stuff. Was actually selling drugs through high school.
While playing basketball and being a student.
Yes, sir. Never had a relationship with God. Never knew God growing up. My family, I never really went to church, so I never really had a relationship with God. I never knew this way of life even existed. And I'm jumping forward a little bit. My dad, he actually passed away, and my brother, Dallas, he had actually found my dad dead in the bedroom, and that's when life. My dad was my hero, and like that's when life really went downhill for me.
Where were you at that time when he passed away?
So I was dating a girl, and my brother had called her mom, and I had just got off work, and he told her that my dad had passed away, and just to be honest, Rudy, I used that night. I was using drugs that night, and it was that was a turning point for me. That's when everything went downhill for me.
A lot of drugs after that?
Yes, sir.
What was the incarceration for?
My incarceration was for this time was for Schedule 1. I was actually out on bond on a Schedule 1 possession charge. Got in trouble again for the same thing. They revoked my bond, and then while I was in jail, I had caught another drug case while I was actually incarcerated.
And this is all the spiral after the death of your dad?
Yeah, it's jumping ahead a little bit. There was jails in between that. This is what I just told you was the most recent.
Why do you think? Did you want to stop, or was it just, this is the way I am?
I did. I didn't have a lot of family growing up. So my father was my only family. My mom was in and out of my life. I never really had a relationship with my mom. My two sisters actually live with they live with my mom. So it's me and my brother and my dad. And my dad was all I had. So when he died, I felt like the only thing I had was drugs.
How much time did you spend in prison?
I did 4 years, 8 months. I had got my sentence. So when I was going to court, there was a gun charge involved with the drugs. So they was offering me 23 at 100% for a long time. So I stayed in the county jail for 18 months, fighting this case until finally they came down to a 16, but they never changed the percentage. They wanted to be at 100%. And finally, 18 months later, they came in and they offered me a 16 at 30, and I ended up taking it, and I went to prison.
When did God come into your life, and how?
So the first 2 years when I got to prison, just to be honest, I was sitting there, and I didn't know how I was going to do all that time. I didn't know where my release date was, and I was just so depressed at the time. In the first 2 years that I was incarcerated, I was still stuck in my mess. I was just trying to do anything not to feel how I was feeling at that moment. And I remember, man, after a couple years, I met a chaplain at Whiteville, Chaplain Rimmer, who actually now works for Men of Valor. And that guy's like my hero because he never, ever treated me like an inmate. He always treated me like a human being. And I was in a church service, and Bellevue First Baptist from Memphis came down, and Mr. Gene was preaching, and I got saved in a service, and 2 weeks later, I got baptized there in the chaplain's office.
And never looked back?
I've never looked back. I've never looked back, and it was just funny, like when I submitted myself, like how my life progressively has started to get better, even in prison, because I started calling my kids more, and not just calling them just like to put checks in the boxes, like trying to learn how to be a father to them, because I didn't know how to be a father to them.
How did they react to you at first? You hadn't been in their lives. Were they hesitant?
Yeah, they was. So my oldest, I had a little relationship with her before I went in, because she's 18. Emma just turned 13. They were standoffish. But I knew I was trying to plant the seed, and I knew that God had a plan for it. Like I knew the whole time. And I remember sitting in a prison cell, and I remember praying, and I remember telling God that one of my biggest things was I wanted to repair my relationship with my daughters, and I didn't know what that looked like, and I didn't know how to be a father. And I just remember through the course of this, I just remember hearing that voice just saying, like, stay the course. Just stay the course. And
there's a lot of guys that I work with who are in the same position. They're in now. They want more than anything, desperately, to show their kids that they were different, that they were changed. What do?
You do the things you say you're going to do. When you show up, you just ain't there, like you're involved, you know? I guess the biggest thing is love, letting them know you love them. But before all that, it's just putting God first in your life. And I think people recognize that when they see a difference in you.
Change a man's heart and you change his life, right?
Yes, sir.
What's it like now? What's your relationship with him like now?
Man, I remember, like, one of the biggest things, I was unsure. I didn't know if I was going to make parole or not. And it could have went either way. but I ended up making parole. And I ended up making parole, and just so happens my daughter's graduation was in that year. So I got to make it to her. I had missed so much, but I got to make it to her graduation, like walk in there, sit down, and like see her cross the stage. And there's no feeling in the world like that. It's just not.
Wow. How old are they now?
So Abby is 18, Emma's 13.
Oh, 13.
Yeah.
Still got a little time.
She does.
Don't let her get around boys.
Absolutely.
I raised 2 daughters.
Yeah.
You become very protective as a father, don't you?
Yes, sir.
It's such a joy, and you can feel their love. And now you want to be an example of a real man, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Wow. You know the name of the program is Put a Word on It.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got one for me?
Yes, sir. My word would be stay the course.
Well, it's
And
more
not
than
just-
one word, but I'll accept that.
And not just stay the course, stay God's course, not the course that you think it is.
How do you know what God's course is?
By staying in that word, by getting around some healthy men that's doing like-minded things like you're trying to do, that love the Lord.
You need somebody to hold you accountable, don't you?
Yes, sir. A scripture that grabbed my heart would be Romans 3:23, for all men has failed and fall short of the glory of God.
You have some people that you know will tell you the truth if you ever slip a little.
I got a phone full.
It's a different man now, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
God bless you. You've been through so much. Now you can't wait to be an example of a great father the rest of your life, can you?
Yes, sir.
You will be, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like what he said, stay the course, which to me is the same as saying be consistent. Just stay with it. And he's, of course, now back with his children, able to talk to them. You know, the whole time he was incarcerated, he never did get a chance to talk to them except on the phone. And now he's a father for the rest of his life. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next time as we put a word on it.